Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
So, Eric, the president, as we mentioned this morning, waking up, tweeting out against or lashing out against the New York Times using the hashtag crooked media. It's no surprise that he has gone after news organizations in this country repeatedly. And so in doing so, undermining the country's ability to be able to access profiles like that of Stephen Miller and understanding how critical he has been. How do you explain both the significance of somebody like Stephen Miller in formulating policy in this country, whether it be immigration or just even the ideological drive that Frank alluded to, and how important of a figure has he now emerged 2.5 years into this presidency?
Well, if you read these two profiles, the one that was done by the Washington Post and one by the New York Times, he's been incredibly influential. The Washington Post says that he writes almost all of the president's speeches, and that because the president doesn't review those speeches until he's on the plane ride to wherever he's going to deliver them, Miller de facto has a tremendous amount of influence. These profiles also say that he's systematically replaced people within the hierarchies of the Department of Homeland Security and other areas with allies of his and allies of the president, and that he also has a practice of calling lower-level employees and inviting them to meetings that their superiors are not aware of so that he can pressure these lower-level employees into enacting the policies and procedures he wants without without their supervisors' knowledge. So he's been able to expand his influence, if these profiles are to be believed, to a tremendous degree. I would like to point out that one of the things that seems to be happening here is that the president and Stephen Miller seem to be trying to expand the definition of what we would term acceptable discourse about issues that are connected to race. They want to narrow the definition of racism so that they're able to talk about these policies and enact measures that normally, say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we would have clearly considered racist. We would have clearly labeled them racist. I have a book called Race Baiter that talks about how media outlets and political organizations use racism to advance their policies. And I talk about something called strategic racism. And this seems to be an example of that, using strategic racism to mobilize voters in a way by enacting these immigration policies that most scholars know have been on a wish list for white supremacist organizations and people who believe in white supremacy. So regardless of whether the president or Stephen Miller can be accused of being racist, if you look at the impact of their policies and the groups that years ago were advocating for these policies, you see their roots in prejudice and racism, and you see why so many people of color are concerned about.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point, and to that I want to go to Jason on this for a moment, because you were talking about whether it's fair or effective. I can assure you that the president has used the word racism in very unfair ways to try to be effective in trying to mobilize his base. Here are some of the people that he has called racist. He has called Elijah Cummings racist. He has called the Squad racist. He has called Senator Elizabeth Warren a racist. He has called President Barack Obama a racist. Hollywood, he called racist. African nations, he called racist. The 2017 protests in Charlottesville, the violent protesters there, and David Duke. So going to your point, Jason, about fair versus effective, the president has weaponized the word racism. He calls Democrats socialists all the time. Why doesn't the same thing apply to him that you brought up earlier?
It does. But let's be very clear. It didn't start with Donald Trump. I recall it being argued that Mitt Romney was a racist. I recall it being argued that George W. Bush was a racist. This has gone on for a long time, and I maintained my point earlier, even though what was really laid out and made clear earlier in our conversation was, it was amazing, the honesty. Because I'm white, I'm not supposed to have an opinion on this, and I'm supposed to shut up. That's the ultimate goal here. But I maintain my opinion, it's not effective. We ought to talk about the actual policies. We ought to talk about actual actions. And the default, it seems, on the left is that if you agree with a policy, yes, that may disproportionately impact a community of color, that it's automatically racist. And that's just not so. And I'm just simply arguing in the marketplace of political discourse, it absolutely, and I didn't say that it doesn't, that I was worried about Democrats and Republicans. I'm talking about people in the middle, people we need to engage in this discourse. Even when we use labels like conservative, liberal, socialist, far right wing, all of these labels really cause people to put filters up and not listen. And I think it would be healthy for our overall discourse, particularly at this point in time when we have historic levels of just polarization, that we go to the heart of the issues and set some of the labels aside.
Let's talk a little bit about the immigration debate, but I'll give you a chance to respond, Dean, because that was
Jason, what word would you prefer instead of racist and bigoted, instead of white supremacist? Is there a word that you find more politically correct that you would like us to use to describe Donald Trump's racist, bigoted things? Because that's what I want to know. Because you're saying, and no one's saying you can't speak out because you're white. I'm saying you've got white privilege. God bless you. I used to have it before 9/11. I'm a minority. I'm Arab.
I would argue. You tell me my growing up in a trailer park in Northeast Texas, being the first person in my family to go to college, working 2 full-time jobs to put myself through college, and that's white privilege?
Yes, because on site, people look at you and see a white man. And again, I want to stress the point that nobody told you. Right, I understand that. Nobody told you that you have to be quiet.
You did. You said
didn't actually. Let me just correct what I said.
On this matter.
Yeah, let me just correct what I said. Let me correct what you heard and correct what I said. I'm saying when people are saying that things are not racist and you are not on the receiving end of that, I don't believe it is your place to tell millions of people of color that something or someone is not racist when you are not on the receiving end of it, as have been many communities of color across this country. It does seem a bit out of pocket to me. And the fact that when you say that, when you point that out, like maybe because you don't experience this, you don't recognize it for what we do, and the reaction that people get, even that is a level of privilege. Like, how dare you say I can't weigh in on this? Well, yeah, kind of. And it's kind of like somebody, like me having an opinion about something happening in your family. I would be out of place on something like that. So no one's telling you can't have an opinion. I'm saying your opinion is uninformed.
It is Monday, the 19th of August of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. It's been quite a weekend, as they all have been since that day. Oh my God, that day. And, there was a lot of people there. Yeah, you could tell. Regardless, it's been another one of those weekends, and we have taken what's left of the weekend, diced it, chopped it up, and put it into a gourmet, delightful dish for your delightful pleasure. Yes, we are in the Department of Redundancy Department. It is Monday. Yeah, and I'll try to get my mouth working. I'll try. Okay, well, many things on the news front. We had a Proud Boy infiltration or invasion, a Proud Boy invasion into Oregon. Well, Portland. There's a lot of people in Oregon who don't consider Portland to be part of Oregon. Of course, those parts of Oregon who don't consider Portland to be part of Oregon really don't want to be part of the United States either, so, you got to take it with a grain of salt. And so the Proud Boys came in and expecting some sort of violent altercation with the evil Antifa. Oh my God, we got to make Antifa a terrorist organization, except for one thing. Try to find a card-carrying Antifa member. You'll find card-carrying Proud Boys. With an organizational structure, a leadership. Actually, they have a board of directors. And any other number of things that make it an organization, but Antifa. Yikes, at best, they're a bunch of kids who dress up in black masks like ninja warriors, and sometimes they, get in people's faces. I know the right wing is just, they show these images of Antifa just, I don't know, out of nowhere, just beating the hell out of people. Now, I'm not into property destruction. I got to tell you, I know that some people say, well, property, that's symbol of property. Well, still, okay. How would you like it if someone ripped up your sleeping bag for, I don't know, a symbolic gesture? You wouldn't like it, especially if you probably have the same sort of sentiments of the person who's ripping up your sleeping bag because there's this greater concern that caused them to rip up your sleeping bag because it was symbolic of something in their head or in the world. So, regardless, I don't like property crime. I don't like property destruction. I think it's stupid. Getting into a Proud Boy's face? Or how about this? That happened in Portland. A guy got into the middle of a group of Proud Boys, dozens and dozens, and said, F you, pointed in their face, went to each and every one, and said, F you. But the right wing is sure able to glom on to these images and of supposed, we're the fascists. That's the other thing. That's just so hard to wrap my head around. This is called gaslighting. They have everything absolutely switched around. Hitler was a leftist, and so was Mussolini. I keep reminding him that the leftists and commies are rounded up by the black and brown shirts, because that's the other thing. Antifa are the brown and black shirts. Not the Proud Boys. Not the Proud Boys. No. So, but regardless, the brown shirts and the black shirts rounded up the leftists and the commies and exterminated them. And I got to tell you, the black and brown shirts were not leftists. But they got it in their heads that their grievance is so profound that the world is upside down now, isn't it? Well, the way of the world should not be that way, and that's why we are here to save it, like we do every single time. Because we've been on the right side of history, because we keep saving it to have a history, don't we? And then it ends up that history is then written by the whiners. Oh, God, or at least rewritten. Well, what's on the menu today at the top, of course? That was former Ted Cruz staffer Jason Johnson whining. Did you like the little baby whine? Yeah. When he was told that he doesn't get to be the arbiter of what is and is not considered racist. It's true. If you are not on the receiving end of racism, you really can't tell anyone else what's racist to them now, can you? No, their grievance is much more grand than that, especially since they feel they're being genocided off the face of the earth. It's weird. Everything's upside down. On the rest of the menu in the Bistro Cafe, Trump insulted the mayor of El Paso to his face while comforting the city after the terrorist shooting there, because Trump has a special way with him, doesn't he? The mayor of Dayton is assigned a 24-hour security detail for over a dozen plausible threats after Trump insulted her over the mass shooting in her city. What's it about this guy? He goes to the places of mass shootings and insults the leadership there. Because, we'll get into the story. Basically, what she did is that she asked him, kindly, we got to do something about guns. Well, he wasn't there for that. He was there for a photo op so he could smile with an orphan baby with his finger up. I know that was in El Paso, but you know what I mean. He wasn't there for policy discussions. He was there for a photo op so he could put it in his Leni Riefenstahl propaganda campaign commercial. That's the way he is. Well, what else? A career State Department staffer was punished for disloyalty to Trump after she accompanied a group of black lawmakers to the UN as part of her job. It was her job. But that's being disloyal to Don. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Trump ripping kids from their families is set to cost taxpayers billions of dollars. Well, if cruelty is the point, then it's priceless, isn't it? And after losing one of its top female athletes, Nike finally decides it cares about maternity rights. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page, right there by the social media scroll, is our chat room link, deftly located by superior graphic design and monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly, for taking care of the chat room. And if you would please then look to the leftish of the page at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. You will then notice our link to our Patreon site, and do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. Your recurring contribution keeps the lights on, and though most of what we do to keep this resisting comes out of our own wallets, but we would be unable to do it without you, because you are our biggest contributor. And please, we've been doing this for 8 years, and if you could just, push the amount of money that you would pay for a latte espresso type coffee drink once a month, we are able to stretch those dollars beyond compare, because we have now over 8 years of experience doing that. 8 years of continuous resistance radio, 24/7, 365. We're the little radio station that could, indeed. And thank you for your generosity. Do follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and we are forever grateful that he does. I, of course, take care of at Justice Putnam, and I post the show notes and links diary about 10 minutes before showtime on Daily Co's, and then get the links for that out on social media. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts can be found, mixed in with all the rest. And that's where we are. We're down in the W's. Indeed. Well, this was a really weird situation that I had on Monday. What's up with YouTube? I don't get them sometimes. So, of course, there's no visuals for the show on YouTube because, my God, I'm not ready to be put on the camera this early in the morning. And I got to tell you, I'm at a certain age now where I don't know if I'm ready to be on the camera at any time. There's no good side. I have no good side anymore. Damn. So that's why I'm in radio. I used to laugh at him back in the day, even though I was in radio. I used to think, at least I can get in front of the camera. And now I understand what the hell goes on. Regardless, we're on YouTube. So we post our shows on YouTube. And for some reason, my show on Friday got blocked on YouTube because of a copyright infringement. And you'll never guess what that was. 17 seconds of the Star Spangled Banner that Nicole Sandler had on her news clip that I used during the break. somebody... Oh, well, of course it was Jimi Hendrix. But still, 17 seconds, I thought that was fair use. What the hell? Well, you know what they say. Just take that out of the podcast then, don't you? Well, it bugs me. YouTube, what's up? The Star Spangled Banner, 17 seconds of Jimi Hendrix playing that. Their production company's going to complain about 17... Yeah, I know. They're probably afraid it's going to get picked up as a beat. It already has. It already has. Well, we should get on with the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Time's a-flying. And, yeah, so this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe is by Dan Desai Martin out of Share Blue Media. Trump could not make it through his recent visit to El Paso without insulting the city's mayor. In an interview with Frontline, Republican Mayor Dee Margo relayed a conversation he had with Trump during a car ride from the airport. He said, "You're a rhino," Margo said. Rhino, or Republican in name only, is an insult insinuating that a particular politician is not conservative enough. Oh, really? And now you know what that means. I said, "No, sir, I am not a rhino. I said I simply corrected the misinformation you were given by the Texas Attorney General, and that's all I did." Well, you don't understand. You're a Republican in name only if you don't kiss Donnie's ass. That's the theme of our news read today. Jeez. And this guy's a supposed Republican. I thought he knew that. Trump's insult stemmed from a dispute following his State of the Union address in February when Trump lied about violent crime in El Paso. In the speech, Trump claimed that a fence along the border turned El Paso from one of the most violent cities in America into a city with less violent crime. Well, after the speech, Margo called out Trump's lie, which Trump was using to justify spending billions of U.S. taxpayer money to build a wall along the U.S. border. Now, Trump has long since abandoned his campaign pledge that Mexico would pay for such a wall. Yeah, whatever happened to that? Trump's insult came during a visit that was already being criticized by the residents of El Paso. Trump ostensibly went to comfort a grieving city in the wake of a mass shooting where a white supremacist walked into Walmart and killed 22 people. The shooter later told police that he wanted to kill Mexicans and used other hateful and racist language about immigrants that bore a striking resemblance to that used by Trump. And before his visit, El Paso's Democratic Congresswoman Veronica Escobar said Trump was not welcome. Words have consequences, and the president has made my community and my people the enemy, Escobar said. He has told the country that we are people to be feared, people to be hated. And one woman credited with saving at least 40 lives in the massacre did not mince words about Trump's responsibility for what happened. You preach and say things, and this is what happens, Adria Gonzalez said in a video posted after the shooting, gesturing to the crime scene at the site of the killings. Now, Trump visited El Paso in February for one of his campaign rallies, and he wasn't welcome at that time either. And the rally followed on the heels of Trump insulting the city during the State of the Union address. And to add insult to injury, Trump has refused to pay El Paso for debts incurred during that campaign rally, and he still owes the city more than $570,000 for providing security during the visit. This guy holds a grudge. In his State of the Union address, he lied, and a Republican did not fall in line with the lie. Trump destroys everything that he touches. Elizabeth Prensa of Alternet brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. Dayton, Ohio Mayor Nan Whaley has been assigned security detail after Trump turned his ire on the grieving local leader in the wake of a massacre in her city earlier this month that killed 9. You know, I'm gonna get right to the point here. I will say that one message sent to her that caused the security detail to be assigned said, "Get the hell out of this country, you disrespectful trash. Treason is death." And that was one of the lighter-hearted ones. But let me get right to the point here. I think the reason that Trump insults these mayors, these leaders, is that they are actually grieving. In some cases, it's because he's holding a grudge because he was corrected, and no one corrects Herr Führer. No one. No one. But really what it gets down to is that Trump cannot stand people who show empathy towards a thing, a human being, an ideal, a concept. Everything is for sale and everything can be bought. Why else does he think he can just buy Greenland? Because of its resources. It's like my Trump bro said. Don't love anything. Everything is for sale. And if a grieving mayor is grieving for the loss of life in her city because of mass killings, of course Trump will insult her. Cy Martin again brings us this time the final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and of course he's out of Share Blue Media. An internal investigation uncovered Trump appointees in the State Department berating and harassing employees accused of being disloyal to Trump. In one instance, a State Department staffer was accused of trying to thwart Trump and his agenda, then punished so severely, she eventually left the department. Her crime? The staffer accompanied a group of black lawmakers on a trip to the United Nations, a routine part of her job. In April of 2018, a career employee, a person who works for the department in a nonpartisan manner and is not appointed by the president, traveled with a congressional delegation consisting of members of the Congressional Black Caucus on a trip to the UN. According to the internal investigation, someone in her position routinely accompanies such delegations, regardless of the composition of the delegation, because it allows the State Department to identify any pressing issues of congressional concern. Mari Stoll, a Trump political appointee overseeing the staffer, was not happy about the trip. Ms. Stoll expressed displeasure with her for accompanying the Congressional Black Caucus delegation because it consisted of only Democratic members, the investigation revealed. Further, Stoll accused the employee of trying to thwart President Trump and undermine his agenda. After the trip, the employee's job duties were changed to mostly administrative tasks, and she eventually left the department. The investigation found Stoll and another Trump appointee, Kevin Moley, frequently berated employees, raised their voices, and generally engaged in unprofessional behavior towards staff because they are there to deconstruct the administrative state. And when you do that, you can't be nice about it. Well, further, the investigation uncovered accusations. Stoll made inappropriate accusations of disloyalty and made positive or negative comments about employees based on her perceived political views of their political views. For example, she accused some staff of being part of the deep state. And would refer to some staffers as Obama holdovers, traitors, and disloyal. Yeah, one of those. The internal investigation found significant evidence of systemic deficiencies in leadership and management and failures of leadership and how the Trump administration dealt with the accusations. Trump has been accused of demanding personal loyalty oaths from political appointees, but career government employees work for the American people, not for the person occupying the Oval Office. Trump's corrupt desire for personal loyalty trickled down, leading to a failure of leadership at the State Department. All right, let's get to our break, and when we come back from that break, you know that we will go through weather from around the world, and you know that we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, the new rule of Fight Club. 2 decades after that film comes a strange, dark comedy that begins like The Karate Kid, takes a turn through the aforementioned, and ends up in pretty much straight-up horror. Our protagonist is Casey, a single, introverted, dachshund-owning accountant who's assaulted by a masked motorcycle gang one night while returning home from buying dog food. After shopping for a pistol in a wonderfully sardonic scene in a gun shop, he decides instead to enroll in a local dojo for karate lessons. It's at this point that we meet the teacher, the sensei, who takes him under his wing, coolly intertwining instruction with pseudo-Eastern platitudes tailored to Casey's desire to, as he puts it, become what he had feared. If deadpan can be brought off with intensity, Jesse Eisenberg's Casey does it. The character, though in his 30s, seems unsocialized and vulnerable, primed, as it turns out, to soak up the poison philosophy of Sensei, turning Casey from shy and retiring to taciturn and dangerous. Sensei is played by the often overlooked Alessandro Nivola from American Hustle and Face Off. He's responsible for most of the unpeeling of the onion as the film gets darker and darker. Pivotal to both plot and commentary in this one is British actress Imogen Poots as the only female in the dojo. She's second only to Sensei skill-wise, but is otherwise disrespected. The movie isn't set in any particular time or place, and cues from the set are either careless or intentionally confusing. Also, you'll note the deliberate delivery of the dialogue, which is reminiscent of a surreal stage play. The art of self-defense combines suspense and humor and earns at least a brown belt for its send-up of pervasive toxic masculinity. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. In the summer of 2015, a strange delivery arrived in Munich, Germany. 25 boxes of still frozen snow, sent all the way from Antarctica. The reason for shipping 1,100 pounds of snow from the bottom of the world? Scientists were hunting for interstellar dust, which might hold clues about our place in the universe. So, first thing scientists did was melt the snow, and then filter it for fine particles. Analyzing the remaining dust with mass spectrometry, they found traces of the isotope iron-60, which is primarily produced in 2 ways, by exploding supernovas or by cosmic rays zapping interplanetary dust. But it's also produced in nuclear reactions here on Earth, by bombs or nuclear reactors. So to determine how much of the stuff was truly interstellar, from beyond our solar system, the researchers used other isotopic clues to screen out quantities of iron-60 produced by nuclear reactions and cosmic rays. And they still had some iron-60 left over to account for, the stuff produced by supernovas.
Just by looking at something which is on our own planet, learn something which is so far away and happened so many millions of years ago. I mean, that's pretty amazing, and that's why I really like this work.
Dominic Cole, an experimental nuclear physicist at the Australian National University. His team reported the results in the journal Physical Review Letters. Cole says this iron-60 might be showering down on us from the local interstellar cloud, the patch of space the solar system's moving through right now. And if the cloud contains material produced by supernovas, Cole says, it could be the ancient remnants of exploding stars, a clue to the structure and formation of the universe. Luckily, we can investigate it all by hunting for dust, right here on Spaceship Earth. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey, kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. From a very young age, we're encouraged to eat fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, many Americans are not getting the message. Dr. Seung-Hee Lee Kwon is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. She's joining us today to discuss the importance of eating enough fruits and vegetables. Welcome to the show, Seung-Hee.
Thank you for having me.
Seung-Hee, what is the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
The federal guidelines recommend that adults consume at least 1.5 cups to 2 cups of fruit and 2 to 3 cups of vegetables each day. This is for adults who get less than 30 minutes of physical activity a day. Adults who are more physically active need more calories and thus should be eating more fruits and vegetables. 1 cup is about 12 strawberries or 1 large tomato.
How many people consume the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
We found that very few adults are getting enough fruits and vegetables. Just 12% are eating the recommended amount of fruits, and less than 1 in 10 eat enough vegetables. And consumption is lower among men, young adults, and adults living in poverty.
Why is eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables so important?
Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help with 3 things. 1, it can reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and deaths, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, some cancers, and even obesity. It can also add important nutrients that are commonly missing in Americans' diet. And it can help with weight management if adults consume fruits and vegetables instead of other calorie-dense foods.
How can we meet the recommended daily intake of fruits and vegetables?
Try to fill half of your plate with fruits or vegetables at each meal or every eating occasion. Making fruits and vegetables the focal point of your meal will help you meet your recommendations. For example, recent studies have shown that adults get most of their fruit during breakfast and snacks. So you can try adding berries to your morning oatmeal or grab a piece of fresh fruit as an afternoon snack. For vegetables, most adults eat them at dinner, so try adding more into your lunch by adding a side salad or packing a snack of baby carrots or grape tomatoes.
Are canned or frozen products just as good as fresh?
All forms of fruits and vegetables count towards meeting the recommendations. For the most health benefits, make sure that the fruits and vegetables you consume have a limited amount of salt, butter, sugar, or creamy sauces. When selecting canned fruits, choose the ones with lowest sugars. And for canned or frozen vegetables, choose those lower in sodium.
Where can listeners get more information about eating a healthy diet?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/nutrition or choosemyplate.gov.
Thanks, Seung-Hee. I've been talking today with Seung-Hee Lee Kwon about the importance of eating a healthy diet. Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and death and add important nutrients to your diet. Make sure you're eating enough. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
It's Monday. Time to pay the gangs. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. That's the beginning of a recent piece about Honduras by Sonia Nazario in the New York Times that went on to report that the gangs of Honduras extract an estimated $23 million per year from the owners of anything that has wheels. This is a deadly serious business. Emphasis on deadly. Quote, since 2010, more than 1,500 Hondurans working in transportation have been murdered, shot, strangled, cuffed to the steering wheel, and burned alive while their buses are torched, end quote. And the gangs are taking more steps to fully take over the police, the courts, and the Congress. The article disputes President Trump's position that sending any money to Central America is a waste of money and explains how the money can be well and effectively spent by funneling it to Honduran civil society groups instead of to the government that is indeed horrifyingly infected by corruption and violence. The article concludes by saying that such aid and involvement will require a long-term, 10 or 20-year commitment. Quote, but in the end, it will be far cheaper and more humane to fund change in Honduras than to spend billions locking up asylum seekers at our borders. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1909. That was the day that a committee of the industrial workers of the world in Spokane, Washington, published the first edition of the Little Red Songbook. The collection were songs to fan the flames of discontent. Perhaps more than any other labor organization in the United States, members of the IWW understood the power of art to tell the workers' stories. IWW members created music, visual art, and writing to draw people to the cause of labor and to build solidarity among workers. Richard Brazier was an IWW musician who served on the Spokane committee that compiled the collection. He explained, what first attracted me to the IWW was its songs and the gusto with which its members sang them. Such singing, I thought, was good propaganda, since it had originally attracted me, and many others as well, and also useful, since it held the crowd for wobbly speakers who followed. The original Little Red Songbook included songs such as Solidarity Forever and the French song The Internationale. 30 editions of the pocket-sized book were published between 1909 and 1995. They have included labor songs from musicians such as Joe Hill, Ralph Chaplin, and T-Bone Slim. John Reed, a former IWW journalist, reflected on the organization's powerful connection to music. He wrote, remember, this is the only American working class movement which sings. Tremble then at the IWW, for a singing movement is not to be beaten. Do you have a favorite labor song?
Solidarity forever.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. When the union's inspiration.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the Continental United States of America, where it is currently 61 degrees Fahrenheit, looking for a low between 92 and 95. Oh, temperate. It is quite temperate here. Fair conditions prevail at the moment. Winds are light and variable. Looks like out of the west, and will remain so throughout the day. Tomorrow will be shifting out of the west-northwest and picking up to 5 to 10 miles per hour. Grass pollen is low. The air quality index is quite good at 16 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is in the high range at 7. Locally, barometric pressure is rising at 29.73 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 78%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 71 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 75 and sunny. Rome is 92 and fair, though they are in a heat advisory that could disrupt the electrical grid. Kiev is 85 and fair. Kabul is 79 degrees and fair. Hong Kong is 81 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 80 with a rain shower, and they are under a flood watch. Sydney, Australia, in the deep throes of their winter, is at 48 degrees, and they are clear. San Francisco, California, in the heat of their summer, is at 58 degrees, and they're cloudy. And New York, is 81 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. First amuse-bouche here at the chef's table comes out of Share Blue Media by Dan Desai-Martin. Trump's family separation policy was not only unconscionably cruel, it could also cost taxpayers billions of dollars in damages. As part of a joint investigation, the AP, along with PBS's Frontline, reviewed 38 legal claims from parents that allege a range of abuse children suffered while in government custody. More lawsuits are expected, and the damages could reach into the billions. Well, I expect an executive order to say anybody brown or black who's not here. Well, actually, anybody brown or black, they just can't sue. They just can't. You know that's coming. You just know it. And anyway, this article is actually appealing to people's fiscal responsibility. We already know the right wing doesn't care about fiscal responsibility. If they use the excuse that they want to save a few cents on every $100 just by not feeding some starving kids that are citizens, do you think they're going to care if it's going to potentially cost them billions of dollars just to keep, I don't know, kicking these kids in the teeth with their iron boot? I don't think so. The stories that these parents are suing over are so horrendous. Do please go to the link at the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos and read it for yourself. I cannot bring myself to read it aloud. Well, again, I've done it once. I should have been recording when I did it. Regardless, these people actually have a claim. And if you want to get rid of fascism and neo-Nazis and white supremacists, you're not going to do it by destroying property, but you can do it by suing them and their property.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
The great Lindsay Gibbs out of Think Progress brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. 3 months after multiple female track stars talked to the New York Times about the ways their Nike contract punished them for becoming pregnant, the sportswear giant has amended its policy to guarantee that a pregnant athlete's pay and bonuses cannot be cut for an 18-month period surrounding their pregnancy, 8 months before the due date through 10 months after. The news comes less than a month after one of the most high-profile athletes Nike had in its cast of athletes, Olympic champion runner Allison Felix, signed with another apparel brand after a public dispute with Nike over its treatment of pregnant athletes. While this is good news, it's long overdue, and frankly, it's embarrassing that a company that likes to run advertisements promoting women's empowerment and applauding mothers in sport had to be publicly shamed into providing maternity rights to its athletes. Before 2018, Nike had zero consistent protections for pregnant athletes in its contracts. Last year, Nike gave pregnant athletes 12 months' worth of protections, though it did not communicate that properly to all of its athletes. None of this would be possible now, this new policy, without Olympic runners Alyssa Montano, Kara Goucher, and Allison Felix breaking their silence and, even more crucially, their non-disclosure agreements this last May in that conversation with the New York Times. Well, this is long overdue, and Felix went with, I'm trying to look at the company that she went with. Oh, I apologize. I had it here written down, but now I'm trying to scroll. Regardless, the new company that she went with gave her much more than what they had been even asking Nike for. And this is long overdue. Maternity rights for athletes should be the same as in any job. Oh, I know. There's a lot of libertarian bros out there that think that maternity rights shouldn't be available at all. Just don't get pregnant if you want to work. Well, sorry. This is the 21st century. I just had no idea there would be so many Nazis. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you know that Netroots Radio is going to be broadcasting on, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up tomorrow right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin là, je tombe. Nuit Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Coët. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus d'être tendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.